Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Run in the Paint recap. I'm Miles here with Ben and Joey here on Saturday, May 2nd. Guys, how are you doing today?
Feeling good, feeling great. Happy to be back with you guys on the recaps. Work's been a little nuts, but I'm here to talk playoff basketball and all the craziness that has just ensued.
Yeah, Ben, how are you feeling after another crazy night? I mean, it feels like just as we know, again, we keep saying it, just as we feel like we know what's about to happen or that things can't get crazier. Oh boy, more things happen in the playoffs. How are you holding up, Ben?
I feel alright, and yeah, just trying to hang in there, see what happens with all this stuff. It's interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, no question about it. As always, make sure to check the description down below if you want to fast forward to any games you want to hear us talk about, and leave a like on the video if you enjoy with these NBA playoff recaps coming every day. I mean, if the play-in and the first round have any indication, hopefully this is an incredible rest of the playoffs. I'm also hoping that we aren't using up all of our entertainment here in round one. Like that's what I'm kind of scared of.
Yeah,
But so far, it's been unbelievable. We had 3 game 6s last night, so let's get into talking about them. Starting off with game 6 of the Pistons and the Magic, the 1-8 series that has gone how no one has expected it to go here so far. Orlando, the 8th seed, had a 3-1 lead. They fell in game 5, and then they came home to a game 6 at home where, look, most people are thinking, man, this is a golden opportunity for Orlando to clinch this first round series. First time that they've had a home closeout game since they moved in to their current arena over the last, few seasons. And it was looking great in the first half. Ben, they were up by a lot early. They had a 22-point lead at halftime, but then they had one of the biggest second half collapses and one of the worst offensive halves any of us have ever seen, and they gave it up. The Detroit Pistons forced a game 7 as they defeated the Magic 93-79 in a 2026 game 6 in Orlando. Ben, I mean, you got to be kidding me. This was unbelievable. How did this happen?
oh yeah, what a crazy game. The Pistons dominated in the first half, and I mean, not the Pistons, the Magic. The Magic dominated the first half, and then Magic had great momentum at halftime, and it completely just flipped in the second half. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe just how many shots they were missing in a row. You rarely see anything like that. I mean, credit the Pistons. Their defense was phenomenal. JB had the guys fired up. They knew their season was on the line in a tough environment. The Pistons, credit they stayed together, held up, but it's unbelievable just how many shots the Magic missed and how they couldn't really get anything going at all. They it was like they were just getting lost of what they were trying to do on the offensive end of Orlando. It's just crazy.
Yeah, Joey. The score was 60-38 at halftime in favor of the Magic. They were completely dominating. They closed the half extremely well. I mean, the second quarter, they outscored Detroit 35-12. Like they had looked like they had completely taken away the hopes of the Pistons here, and we were actually going to see the 8th seed take down the number 1 seed. But then in the second half, I mean, the score was 55-19 in favor of the Detroit Pistons. 19 points in the second half for Orlando. There was a stretch where they missed 23 shots in a row in a span of 45 minutes of real game time. And to close the game, they made only one of their final 27 shots.
That is just awful. How do you go that frigid, like ice cold, like you're in Antarctica or something like that? You are so cold at home. At home is awful. They have such a great crowd. That place was rocking in the first half. You could only do so much. What was up with the hoop? Maybe because they switched that, like maybe something happened. Who knows? But that can't happen. I don't know what else to say. Like that is one of the worst shooting performances I've ever seen in any game, not just playoff history, but like in any game. Like 0 for 20, an 0 for 23 stretch, 19 points across 2 quarters. That's like me playing against on rookie mode in 2K, like going against another team. Like I don't let them score, but every now and then they get an easy layup. That's kind of how it was playing.
Look, and I'm sorry, like you said, this isn't just bad for an NBA playoff game. This is bad for an NBA game. I think this could be an over exaggeration. I have walked into watching fourth graders play before, and I've never seen anything like this before. Just off luck. How do you miss 26 out of 27 shots on your home floor in a closeout game where, again, we've been saying on the podcast, these are the biggest games in Orlando Magic franchise history since the 2009 finals, with a chance to knock off the top seed in the East. And again, the first chance to clinch a series since they moved to the Amway Center, now the Kia Center. And the crowd was great. Even when the Pistons were starting to come back, they were chanting defense, let's go Magic. They were there the whole time. But Detroit just completely turned it up on the defensive end. And I think you have to point to Cade Cunningham's brilliance in this game.
Yeah, Cade Cunningham was fantastic on both ends. But like you said, especially that defensive end, he was just on top of it. Obviously, so was like everybody else on the Pistons defense. It was just a stifling defense. Star Thompson was just rejecting shots at like a volleyball spike level velocity. Like it was insane. But like, yeah, Cade Cunningham was fantastic. That's what a leader does. Orlando, who's your leader? Is it Paolo? Because look at that stat sheet, man. Bring up that box score. 9 for 12 is your best percentage, and that was from the free throw line. You go 0 for 9 and 4 for 20 from the field goal. I feel like we've seen this before where the only way he's effective is when he's getting to the free throw line. But outside of that, he's a no-show. You can't trust him with the offense.
Well, by the way, this is coming off of, Ben, a amazing game 5 where he had 45 points. Like, it's crazy how much the switches flipped with this Orlando team here. You know, we've been saying it all really, you know, the end of the season, how it's just the turnaround for Orlando has been unbelievable. How from that playing game against Charlotte and then this first round, how like this is the team we expected to see in October and in the regular season, you know, and it put them in position to, again, be up 3-2 and up by 24 points to begin the second half against the top seed in the Eastern Conference. And it just completely flipped. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a turnaround like this before in a game to this magnitude ever. Like, the closest thing I could think of was when the Rockets in 2018 missed 27 straight threes in Game 7 to go to the finals against the Warriors. But at least that's only threes. Like, they were missing mid-rangers. They were getting blocked at the rim. The only field goal they made in the final 16 minutes of game time was a Apollo dunk when the game was already over and the Pistons were just laying off because they didn't want to foul. Like, it was just a completely crazy turnaround. And we're mentioning the Pistons defense, but Ben, the fourth quarter that Cade Cunningham had was just super special. I mean, he was getting to the free throw line at will. He was making crazy shots. He finished with 32 points in this game, 19 of them coming in the fourth quarter, which matches the Magic's total for the entire second half.
Yeah, just one of the craziest turnarounds I've seen in the NBA. Like one game, just oh man, it's an unbelievable flip of events. We all have said, and I just gotta, shout out Paul Reed. I saw he had free blocks in the stretch where Magic were missing shots. He stepped up and played a good, productive 11 minutes. Was a +7. So yeah, he stepped it up some more than today too. And yet Tobias here, I mean, not really all that efficient for the field today, but 22 points. It's at least a guy that's giving some scoring, the last two games.
Orlando would have killed
Yeah.
Tobias Harris on their
Oh,
team.
He would have been their best player, more efficient
Yeah.
than Paolo, and scored more.
Yeah. It really is just crazy, Ben. You mentioned Paul Reed. He was great. I think we got to give a lot of credit to JB Bickerstaff for just the adjustments he made throughout this game and just his poise throughout the game. Like, what really stood out to me was at the beginning of the second half when they're down by 22 points. They give up a bucket to start the second half, and then Cade dribbles it off his foot, turns it over. It's just like, oh my gosh, this looks like a disaster. But then you look over to the bench, and JB Bickerstaff, he's pretty as calm as ever, and he's just like, all right, come on, White, let's go, let's pick it up. Which generic coach talk there, but clearly he has gotten this locker room to believe. Like, how many teams would, when you're down by 24 on the road on the second half of an elimination game, would just wither up and die in that situation? But they didn't, and he made some great adjustments in this game. Again, Cade Cunningham played a majority of this game, nearly the entire second half, and he did make the switch to put Paul Reed in the second unit instead of Isaiah Stewart, who was awful in the first half. He's made the adjustments he took Karis LeVert out of the rotation in the second half. Ron Holland, he can't shoot. He doesn't provide anything in the playoffs, so he hasn't played. So, he's made necessary adjustments to put Detroit now in a great position. We say it all the time when a team is down 3-1, when they're the higher seed. It's like, all right, it's obviously a tough thing to climb from, but if you win your game 5 at home, which you should, because you're the home team, you should have some pride, win your game 5. Game 6 is the toughest game because it's on the road. The other team knows that they can close it out. This was the game they needed to win because now, it's hard not to feel like they've got all the momentum going into Game 7 on Sunday.
I feel like they lost the game. I feel like they lost the series.
Orlando did.
After that frigid performance. Like, I expect you to maybe not that cold, but like to go cold for stretches away when you're not playing at home. A place that you haven't played 41 times in the regular season. Like, I expect you not to know those hoops as well. Like, even though it's the same, it's different. But I expect that. There's no shot. But hey, congrats, JB. You somehow made it past the Orlando Magic in the first round through 7 games again.
Well, we do have to wait for Game 7, where obviously anything can happen, but it does, like you said, Joey. I even said it, on the pre-pod lobby, I don't know how a Magic fan could walk out of the Kia Center not feeling like they had just lost the series with that second half. You think, overall, when this series comes to an end, if Orlando does end up losing the series, blowing a 3-1 lead, that's just going to be such a tough way for their season to go out here, considering that, I still would say here that Orlando has massively dominated the series for the majority, except in Game 2's third quarter, where they got outscored 30-3 to start the third quarter, which was an unbelievable historic run. And then this second half, where they missed 26 of 27 shots to close the game. They have put up 2 historic offensive stinkers in this series that they've otherwise dominated the rest of.
There's no way they make it to the second round. I'm sorry. There's no way Jamal Mosley makes it another round without getting fired. There is no shot.
Yeah, I just can't believe it, and I feel bad for the Magic fans, man. We've been huge fans of this team coming up. There's reason we had such high hopes for them the last couple of years, for it to just this to happen in Game 6 at home. you just feel bad for them. But again, they got another chance on Sunday afternoon, Game 7 at 3:30 p.m. ABC, which will be back in Detroit. We'll preview that one more so on tomorrow's recap as well. Moving on to the next game, we got another Game 7 in the Eastern Conference after a crazy finish in Game 6 between the Cavs and the Raptors, with Toronto pulling off the 112 to 110 victory off of an insane game-winning three-pointer from RJ Barrett, one of the craziest bounces that you'll ever see, hitting off the back rim, skying up to the shot clock, and dropping down up there with the Tyrese Halliburton against the Knicks last year. Kawhi Leonard in the same building on the same basket against the Sixers from 7 years ago. I mean, this was just a crazy game here, and obviously for us Cavs fans, a heartbreaking way for this one to finish here. With how it happened. Joey, what are your overall thoughts here?
A lot of pain and depression just comes with the territory of being a Cleveland fan in general. But so this is nothing new to me, but it still hurts all the same. That shot by RJ Barrett will be sunk into my memory because before I went to work today, I wore my LeBronto shirt. I was like, I got to put the good juju out there. And then that happens. And I'm like, this isn't good. I don't like this. But what a game by Toronto. That's where I kind of have to go to because the Cavs played pretty decent with terrible shooting. Like, again, they can't play on the road, it seems. Like, they just weren't playing well. Evan Mobley was fantastic. But Donovan Mitchell and James Harden could not shoot the ball until Donovan Mitchell turned it on late in the game. But we've seen that story before in the regular season, and it hasn't quite panned out. So here we are again. But Toronto played a fantastic game. That crowd was fantastic. RJ Barrett continuing to have a good series, being kind of that second man to step up. Scotty Barnes still having a really great series. Jacoby Walter having a really good game because he has not had a good series. He's been very inefficient. What you expect out of a 3-and-D guy, and he's only been providing the defense. But today was the opposite. Today he was fantastic on both ends. Huge for them, especially not having Brandon Ingram. Not like he has showed up in really any other game this series, though. But that was a very good team win. But who knows? Anything can happen in the next game, but disappointing performance from the Cavs. Fantastic performance from the Raptors.
Yeah, Ben, it's kind of a similar thing we've been talking about, with this series. I mean, again, for the Raptors, incredible performances like Joey mentioned. Scotty Barnes, another phenomenal game, 25.7 boards, 14 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. Like, he's just been unbelievable. I'd say he's been the best player in this series. I mean, he's just been amazing on both ends of the floor. RJ Barrett with a big game. But on the Cavs side of things, another game here where they're in the position to win here, but it's a situation like we've seen all season long from this team where they don't have the sense of urgency on both ends of the floor until like the fourth quarter. Like, there was a clear switch in how the Cavs took care of business in this one from the fourth quarter and overtime than from the first 3 quarters of play.
Yeah, the Cavs played better in the fourth quarter. Like, when we got that lineup in with a bigger lineup with Dean Wade, Evan Mobley, Allen Harden, Mitchell, and the defense looking pretty good for the rest of the fourth quarter with that lineup. But, things have to be more consistent and better throughout a whole game, and the Cavs could have had an easier, better chance to win if they played better earlier. I mean, closer. Just, problem with the Cavs is still just not consistent enough. Still, I think this team could be in a better spot. The Cavs, if we were more consistent with stuff, but. Yeah, when RJ Barrett hit that shot, that was just heartbreaking. I was on this couch like this when that happened. I couldn't believe it. But right before that, the the Cavs had Schroeder taking up the ball. In my opinion, I even watched the replay of that after the game. Kenny should have called a timeout right there, and the ref could have maybe heard him. I saw on the replay there was a ref standing right in front of Kenny. I mean, like, I think you got to know better that it didn't seem like the Cavs were set up for success with what the Raptors were trying to do, being so aggressive defensively. He should have called one, two timeouts. I don't think one would have hurt, and we had though he didn't, and part of that was Kenny's fault there, but also Mobley has to catch that ball, and he didn't catch the ball. Then off we off we go on the Barrett shot. I think you know Mobley caught up to Barrett with a decent closeout, but he shouldn't have dropped earlier before that happened. He should have stayed more out with Barrett, and maybe that could have missed it. It could have been all over that.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is like it's so easy to write the story with the while the ball after it goes in. Like there's the phrase where you have to write the story like while the ball's in the air or while the ball's like being dribbled or being passed. Because look, at the end of the day, like if you're Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes has been dominating, driving the ball to the basket for most of the game, and you've done a good job of getting the ball out of his hands and forcing other good shots. Like their defense in the fourth quarter and overtime was very good. I think you live with RJ Barrett taking a semi-contested three with Evan Mobley in your face. You take that more times than not. It's not like RJ Barrett's a great three-point shooter and it took a miraculous bounce for that shot to go in. Like you live with the shot. I live with the shot as a fan. I think you have to live with the shot as a viewer, because that's a much better it just as easily could have just fallen off the rim, and we're talking about it completely differently that they won the series. But I do agree that I wish that Kenny Atkinson managed some of the timeout things better, like mainly the coach's challenge that he called in the first half. That was not good. And normally, he's one of the best coaches in the league with his challenges, but this game, it just wasn't there. And there were definitely some plays later on that could have, that definitely could have helped him. But overall, with the Mobley turnover at the end, like, again, it's a similar thing. Like, yes, it was kind of a congested play, but Schroeder got into the front court. He got a clean pass to Evan Mobley, who cleanly caught the ball before it was knocked out of bounds. What do you mean? He cleanly caught the basketball in his hands.
First off, I completely agree that Kenny Atkinson made some really bad decisions. Shouldn't have challenged that first one and should have saved it because that's the first quarter. It's the playoffs. You need to save those until the end, like the Raptors did when they used theirs in overtime. Like, that's what you do. But yes, he also should have just called timeout. As soon as Schroeder got over half court, he should have called timeout. But in that instance, Schroeder jumps for some reason and then gets the clean look and clean pass to Mobley, who is the only bad free throw shooter out there. I know everybody else was covered, but again, that's why Kenny should have called a timeout. But has Evan Mobley ever really had strong hands?
Oh, no, I completely agree.
The last 3 to 4 years, I want him to have strong hands. I know you said he caught it cleanly, but you said he caught it clean looking on replay. That was still a second or a second and a half where he had the ball. That is not cleanly held by him no matter what. He needs at least 2 to 3 seconds to catch it cleanly sometimes, I feel like. I don't think it was a dumb decision. Schroeder should have just stopped. Let them foul.
Well, he jumped in the air because if he didn't and he didn't get across half court, it would have been another 8-second violation because it was late in the shot clock.
Again, I might be remembering it wrong, but I swear when I was watching it, he jumped after he already crossed half court. He took like a step over half court and then like leaped. And I'm like, you mistimed that jump and you threw yourself in a terrible position to just get the ball out. And again, when you're in the air, you have to get rid of it or do something with it. So I get why he passed. I don't get why he jumped. I don't get why Kenny Atkinson didn't call the timeout. There's a lot of things that are just kind of boneheaded decisions I saw at the end of that game by the Cavs. That's not how you win games, regardless. Like, that's just not how you do that in clutch time. Those are the mistakes champions do not make.
Yeah, so looking at the play, I see. So what happened was Schroeder, he just got into the forecourt, but was off his right leg, kind of about to sail out of bounds.
Oh, okay.
So that was the play. And I would say with Mobley, I mean, I think he cleanly caught the ball. Like, he caught the ball, and then Colin Murray-Boyles knocked it away. So it's not – I think two things are true. I think Mobley caught the ball, but he wasn't strong enough to hold on to the ball to the point where it got knocked away. I think those are both true.
Yeah.
I was going to say he needs stronger hands. Yeah.
I think, he caught the ball, but Colin Murray-Boyles made a great defensive play, and he continues to be great in the series. Yes, and then RJ Barrett, makes the three. But either way, like, obviously the turnover is heartbreaking and the shot is heartbreaking, but it all goes back to the lack of urgency in the second and third quarters where they were just trading baskets. Like, I can't look at the turnover or the basket at the end. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't matter, because if they had taken care of business in the second and third quarters, they're just not in that position where they don't take their first lead until overtime, since the first quarter. So that, I think, they made some late game blunders and all that, but they did it to themselves with how they played earlier in the game.
Yeah. I'll be honest. The Raptors kind of controlled that whole game, like you said. Like, they controlled the whole game until the Cavs turned it on late. And the only reason we actually managed to get it to overtime, and I'll point to one singular stat. James Harden had less than 5 turnovers. He finished with 4 on the day. That's an absolute win in my book. And that's the only reason it was close. You don't turn the ball over. They don't get extra possessions. They don't get easier shots. Look at that. But again, you're making boneheaded mistakes from, again, whoever. Coach, players, either way, you guys got to be smarter.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that, Harden had less turnovers. That combined with Mitchell finally having like a decent quarter, because we could talk about him and how this is really the 4th straight game where he just has not really looked that great. And then, look, we've talked about, Evan Mobley needed to, hold the ball and all that stuff. But my goodness, he's been awesome for back-to-back games. He's had 4 games this series where he's looked really, really good. And I'll tell you what, this has got to make Cavalier fans feeling pretty good that he's got to have these performances in the playoffs here, where he has 26 and 14 in this game. He made 3 threes. Earlier on, he was knocking down his free throws consistently, and when they were down 2 in the final seconds of regulation to get it to overtime, they gave him the ball to go to work on a one-on-one situation, and he scored it. Like, that was a star-level performance by Evan Mobley in this game, not to mention the stuff he did defensively, which, we know he does. So he played phenomenal. Donovan Mitchell had a very strong 4th quarter, but fortunately, the Raptors guys were just better. Scotty Barnes had the best game on the floor. RJ Barrett made the shot, and it's just crazy that they got the bounce. The Cavs had a couple bounces that didn't go their way. They had some wide open corner threes that didn't go their way. Mitchell had the step back 3 on the left wing, which was in and out. And then, RJ Barrett gets the bounce. So, definitely things that end up going, both ways there. But the Raptors end up pulling out the Game 6 win to force the Game 7. Again, we'll preview that more on tomorrow's podcast. The game will be Sunday, 7:30 in Cleveland. Again, the home team has won the first 6 games in the series. So we'll see if the series actually officially starts.
We'll see. You will see. You will see.
Yeah, I'll be going to the game, so hopefully I can bring some good juju to them. I did go to the Magic Cavs Game 7 at home, so hopefully I can go 2 for 2 on Game 7s. But overall, shout out to the Raptors, man. What they've done, in this series to take this Cavs team to Game 7. Like, obviously, if Cleveland ends up losing this series, which I haven't fully want to think about what would happen if that ended up happening, but now it's 1 loss away. If that were to happen, and even the Raptors getting to this point, most people go to point at the Cavaliers for good reasons because they should be the more talented team. They should have higher aspirations. But you got to give these Raptors guys credit because they are tough. They're well coached. They have performed very well on both ends of the floor, and they have just been awesome in this series.
110%. They have been fantastic, and I know I'm getting really mad about how the Cavs can't win on the road, but let me tell you, we've known for 10 plus years it is extremely difficult to win it in Toronto. Jurassic Park and that crowd is one of the best for a reason.
Yeah. And then, of course, the stat is the Raptors are something like 0-10 or 0-11 now, all time in playoff games in Cleveland. So we'll see if that holds true as well going into Sunday. But either way, I mean, that's another game. Anything can happen in that one. But the Raptors forcing a game 7 with the overtime victory on just an incredible RJ Barrett shot. I mean, that's one of the great game winners. Again, like in the big moment too. I mean, if he misses the shot, series is over. But now Raptors have whole new life going forward.
Yeah,
Insane.
exactly.
Yeah. So moving on here to the last game of the night, Game 6 between the Lakers and the Rockets. The Lakers, the only team to finish off their series here on Friday night, as they took it to the Rockets 98-78. Another game where a team can't even put up 80 points here. Looking at the Houston Rockets here, my goodness, this was a defensive clinic. This was a series that we've talked about how, man, this could really take a turn now with the Rockets winning these last 2 games. But Ben, right from the jump, really from that second quarter on, the Lakers just took full control.
Yeah, the Lakers, I wasn't sure, how they could totally bounce back in Game 6, but they bounced back impressively well, and I was blown away by their defense, their job in transition off of the nice stops they made defensively was fantastic by them, and just they did a phenomenal job of just making Houston just look uncomfortable, force Houston in the bad shots they totally didn't want to get into throughout the game. A lot of credit to JJ Redick and the Lakers for how they closed this series out in Houston when it was them started to get under some pressure now to close it out, and with Houston being back at home trying to force the game 7 was a tough spot, but it was great to see the way they responded and an impressive series victory to where they can now move on into the second round.
Yeah, Joey, what do you think was what was the biggest thing that stood out to you in this one?
I don't really know, other than, well, the 2 constants in life. Houston with the terrible, 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 terrible offense, or LeBron is the greatest of all time, and there's no doubt in my mind, and I have a very clear conscience saying that. There is no man, we can confidently say, even though the Lakers had great help from Luke Kennard and Marcus Smart, Rui Hachimura has had a fantastic series along with this really good game. But those 3 guys really, really stepped up when they needed to. But even getting Austin Reeves back. But Austin Reeves scoring 15 points and 0 for 4 from 3, that's not really the Austin Reeves we know and love. But the one constant throughout all of those games that they won in this series is that LeBron James was undoubtedly probably the best player on the Lakers team every single game, and he willed them to a series win. That is just fantastic, incredible thing to watch at the age of 41. It's just insane. But yes, Houston, terrible, terrible offense. And I know we made a lot of some comparisons to the Minnesota Timberwolves, who won and moved on for their series, and to the Houston Rockets. how neither of them really had a good point guard. And we talked about it the whole season, like they need to do in the trade deadline to get a point guard. Otherwise, they're going to be screwed when it comes to playoff time because those teams will make the playoffs, but they need a point guard. Well, at the trade deadline, the Timberwolves trade for Ayo Dosunmu, who was on the trade market, one of the plethora of guards that were out there, and he single-handedly won them a game. And
two games. I'd say 2 games.
I'd say 2 games as well. But and then even though we didn't play the last game, that was the proverbial nail in the coffin. I don't think the Nuggets had any fight in them after that. There was just no shot. What did the Rockets do? Kept on to their own. They didn't need a point guard. They said they were going to roll with the punches. It's not like they have a plethora of talent to trade for the plethora of guards that were on the market, but they stayed put. They trusted in their team, and now they're out in the first round to the LA Lakers, who basically didn't have Luka Doncic or Austin Reeves the entire series, and you lost to 41-year-old LeBron James.
Yeah, look, LeBron, we just gotta dude, this only adds to the legacy. Year 23, and he was able to lead his team to win a playoff series. Age 41, year 23, that should not be possible. That should not be possible. But he continues to just be, great and leading his team and giving them the confidence that they can, go out and do this. I love what JJ Redick said before this game in the pregame presser, how, heading into this one, a lot of people may be thinking, including us on the podcast, man, Houston, they should be feeling super confident now. They got back-to-back wins. They're starting to play more like themselves. They should be feeling great. But JJ Redick said that Marcus Smart told the team after game 5 that, listen, I know the avenue to get to this point was a little weird because we're up 3-0. But if you would have told us that we would be going to Houston for game 6 up 3-2 with a chance to clinch without Luka, and we just got Reeves back, we take that any day of the week. So they didn't look at it as them losing 2 straight games. They looked at it as them still being up 3-2 in the series, which was a great mindset to have. And they did not look like it. They looked like by far the better team in this game, which they had not in games 4 and 5.
Yeah, just phenomenal spots, as I said, by the Lakers, and just, not the way Houston wanted to end their season. They showed good fight even after being down 3-0 to at least take 2 games. It's definitely better than getting swept, but then, it was just unfortunate that, it's a loud crowd at Houston, and they couldn't really show much for it, especially on the offensive end. And now the season is over, and they got to regroup in the offseason to figure out how to get better, especially with, the offense and the ball handling on offense.
Yeah, definitely for sure. We'll get to previewing the Rockets offseason in a little bit here. But I think as far as the game, I think the big thing to look at for this one was the 3-point line, just the shooting in this game. These two teams both got up a similar number of, shot attempts in this game, especially from 3. Both teams shot 28 threes. The Rockets only made 5 of them, and the Lakers made 12 of them, which is a 21-point differential from 3, and it was a 20-point game. That's kind of your game right there. Not to mention the Rockets, who were the best offensive rebounding team in the league all season, got out rebounded on the offensive glass in this one, 15-8 in this game. So, they just didn't really have it in this game. Reed Shepherd, brutal shooting game again in the series, goes 4 for 19, 1 for 10 from 3. Jabari Smith only had 9 points. They just didn't have the offensive firepower to keep it up for 3 straight games in a row in this series. I think for them, I feel like they kind of started playing in game 4 or game 3, feeling like, all right, this is a series we can win. They really just started playing in game 3, but then they just weren't able to get it done. Of course, Kevin Durant was out for 5 of the 6 games, but as we talked about after game 2 of the series, it's not like Durant did anything in game 2 to make us think that anything would have changed as far as the result goes.
Nope, offense is terrible with or without him. Doesn't matter. But congratulations, Cancun on 3.
Yes, that's right. So the Lakers move on. Their first playoff series win since 2023, and just their second since they won the title back in 2020. So that's obviously the Lakers a banner franchise, but they've been first round exits the last few years. So it's a big accomplishment. JJ Redick, his first career playoff series victory as a head coach. So an enormous accomplishment for the Lakers team this year. In a year where I'm not sure if most of us had them winning a playoff series this year, even in the middle of the season. So the fact that they were able to do it against a talented Rockets team, it was definitely impressive.
Very much so. Very good season, Lakers. It's been a pleasure watching you. I know we're saying congratulating, but also, unfortunately, you have the pleasure of facing the Oklahoma City Thunder next round. So congratulations. We'll see you next year.
Yeah, and of course, on tomorrow's podcast, we're gonna preview and predict both of the Western Conference semifinal series between the Thunder and the Lakers, and also the Spurs and the Timberwolves. Still can't believe we're saying that as a second round series. We'll get to that later because obviously Joey hasn't been on for a while, so we want to get his thoughts on some of the other first round matchups that have happened throughout this week. But before we get to that, let's talk about the Rockets heading into the offseason, like we've done for every team. Or I guess not. For some reason, technology just doesn't want us to talk about the Houston Rockets. Now we're back. Houston this season, it's kind of hard to gauge how it went for them, honestly. They end up going 52-30, but they didn't have their normal starting point guard the entire year with no Fred VanVleet with the ACL or Achilles injury. Steven Adams, their backup center, an enormous piece for their team, goes out midway through the season. First year with Kevin Durant, has his healthiest regular season in a long time, played 78 games in the regular season, but unfortunately, injury in the playoffs causes him to miss more playoff games than he did the entire regular season, and they end up losing in 6 games to the Lakers when they didn't have Luka Doncic on their team. So, Joey, how do you kind of summarize this Rocket season? How do you think it went overall for them?
It went as expected, I'll be honest. Brutally honest, because they probably had higher expectations for themselves. You don't be the 2 seed in the West last year, and then you go into this season adding Kevin Durant after doing that and expect to lose in the first round. That is obviously not how it's expected to go, but based off of how, like you said, you lose Fred VanVleet, and like I said, you didn't trade for a new point guard at the trade deadline or any other time during the season. This is what you get. Yes, Steven Adams was a huge loss, but we saw the struggles throughout the whole regular season, the first half especially, and even the second half. Like, they were not a good offense. We knew not having someone to run the offense and be the main ball handler was going to be an issue. And they thought differently. So, as expected, this is what probably was going to happen. And now in the offseason, you really have to look. If you're looking at this, I would blame it on the front office if they truly thought that this team was going to do better than this, because that was clear to everybody else in the world, in the NBA world, that this was not going to do it if you had Amen Thompson and KD as your proverbial point guard for the whole basically playoffs. And it's like, we have Reed Shepherd. But like you said, if he's shooting 1 for 10 from 3 and shooting 4 for 19, you can't play him. He's too much of a defensive liability when your team is built on defense. The team is fine. You need to get healthy, but you need to get a point guard. Regardless if you trust in VanVleet and you think he's going to come back and you think he's going to bring in everything, you need another one. Whether it's someone to be the third string, even behind Reed Shepherd. that is fine because I like Reed Shepard a lot. But this was basically his rookie year because he didn't play a whole lot like his actual rookie year. So this was his rookie year reps. I expected him to have some struggles, especially in the playoffs. So you need someone, you need a veteran there. Doesn't matter if they play a whole lot, maybe not even in the playoffs, but you need someone to rely on. Kind of like how the Cavs relied on Dennis Schroeder for that one, for the game 5, and he helped us win. Like, that's kind of what they need. They need someone like that.
Yeah, I think they're definitely an interesting team going forward. Something that that's very, interesting to me looking at, this overall, just doing some research here on the fly, was looking at the team's, offensive rating for the season. Because during the regular season, the Rockets, because of, their great defense, them forcing turnovers, and for the first half of the year, them shooting a lot better from 3 than, they actually were. They ranked as the 8th best offense in the league with an offensive rating of a 118.6. In the playoffs, in this series against the Lakers, the Rockets' offensive rating was 105.2, which is, 13 points lower. And that would have actually ranked dead last in the league, much worse offensively, in the NBA. But I say that to say there are a lot of teams that their ratings are down now that we are in the playoffs. Like Denver, who was the top offense in the NBA, obviously, and obviously they're out now. They're the middle of the pack offense in the playoffs at a 108.2, which ties Brooklyn for the worst offensive rating in the season during the regular season. Like, what do you guys think about that? How, like, it's just a completely different sport now, kind of, that offenses there seem to be, they definitely are a lot worse because the defense rises up. But I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this to where the average offense in the playoffs is equivalent to the worst offense in the regular season. Like, that's very interesting.
I don't know about you, Ben, but to me, it's the playoffs. It's what I expect. I expect the refs to hold their whistle and hold their tongue a lot more, which they are. They're letting them play. They're letting them get more physical, a lot more no calls. I see a lot of guys looking at refs, waiting for a call, and they're not calling them. It's the playoffs, guys. This is what it is. You got to play through the toughness. I feel like a lot of teams, well, a lot of players offensively and a lot of teams relied on a lot of foul shots and then building off of that and getting the other teams in foul trouble. And unfortunately, that's not going to work in the playoffs because defenses always ramp up. And if the refs are also going to hold their tongue and let it be more physical because they need to keep the game moving because it's the playoffs, this is when everyone is watching. Like, this is to be expected. Like, in my opinion, if a lot of teams relied on offense like that, which I believe they do, this is what's going to happen. One of the only teams that you may think relies on it, like a lot of people just because they call Shea Gilgeous-Alexander a big-time foul baiter. But that team is still really good. Why? Because they have other ways to win. They don't just rely on getting the other team in foul trouble.
So, Ben, I think someone that we should talk about here that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on is the head coach of the Rockets, Ime Udoka, who this was his 3rd year with the Rockets. And of course, he had, injuries, on his team to, some of his most important players this year in the regular season and the playoffs. But we talked about kind of during the series, especially after the crushing Game 3 loss where they blew the 6-point lead in 30 seconds, about how when specifically a guy like Reed Shepard, who Joey, talked about him getting the reps this year, about how at times during the regular season, it felt like they weren't really managing him correctly because, they didn't make a move to acquire an actual point guard during the regular season to give him more reps. But then near the end of the regular season, he wasn't playing as much. And then when guys are out in the playoffs, he suddenly is playing 40 minutes, a game here and kind of thrown to the fire. And then Ime Udoka is saying different things in post-game interviews. So, Ben, what do you think about the job Ime Udoka did for Houston this year? And do you think that there's any chance that he could be on the hot seat after this first-round loss?
Well, I think overall this year, it was tough offensively with the lack of ball handling. I would say that was a tough spot he was put in, and it's on the GM, as Joey said. They should have traded for like an actual ball handling point guard at the deadline, and now that has to be addressed this off season. But yeah, he could have did some things better to help space things out with the offense and stuff. I guess he's never really been a great offensive coach, in my opinion, but seems like to be more of his specialties on the defense. He usually gets out pretty good defense out of his teams, and he had, overall good defense, and his team was pretty successful rebounding throughout the year. So, I see he has his strengths and weaknesses, in my opinion, but I don't think they should fire him quite yet this offseason, but I think he could be on the hot seat going into next year, and he's really going to be under pressure next year to try to get some improvement out of this team, and they'll definitely be expected as they get, Fred VanVleet back healthy and another new good ball handling point guard, and hopefully for him to try to win. And that doesn't totally happen next year. Then he could be gone. But we've been surprised by firings before head coaches, so we'll say you never know.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I think that Ime Udoka will be their head coach heading into the next year. I think next year is the year where they are going. Next year is going to be is going to be a great chance for them getting Van Fleet and Adams back and whatever guys they bring in next year, and the development of their young guys as well. But I feel like we're talking about how we feel like maybe they should have made a deal for a point guard, but regardless of how you feel, I think them deciding to stand pat told us that they didn't believe that this was going to be the championship contending year. Like, they didn't believe that this was going to be the year that they were going to go for it. They preferred having Reed Shepherd and Amen Thompson handle the ball more instead of getting your stopgap point guard, whether it was Schroeder, like you guys talked about, or a Russell Westbrook or a James Harden, on their team. They opted to go the younger route because they clearly felt that they weren't ready this year. So this offseason, they're in a unique situation where most of their players are under contract going forward. Something that they will have to look at is Tari Eason's restricted free agency. He's someone that's been on and off throughout the season. He started off as like a great 3-point shooter, but completely tailed off near the end of the season. And really, their progression is gonna rely a lot on their players' progression. This was a season where we expected, I think, a lot bigger of a jump from Amen Thompson than we actually got, and a much bigger jump from a Jabari Smith Jr. than I think we actually got. So next year is going to be the year to see, like, are those jumps still out there for those players? Are they still capable of becoming more than what they are right now? I think Şengün did it during the regular season. In the playoffs, at times he struggled a bit, but I was very pleased with what he ended up giving the Rockets throughout the regular season as another All-Star campaign. I think it's time for Amen Thompson specifically to make a big jump next year.
Completely agree. He needs to develop him and his brother. Both of them need to develop some sort of offensive game other than driving to the basket. I see Asar Thompson sometimes doing like a little mid-range game, same with Amen, but like it needs to become more consistent because they are elite athletes and defensive players. Fantastic. All defensive teams for both of these guys in their young careers. Like, the sky is the limit for them on the defensive end. But unfortunately, you're such a liability on offense. And when you're a team that already struggles with offense, like the Houston Rockets, and they need someone to be another scorer, it's going to become a bigger issue.
Yep. So definitely, an interesting offseason for the Rockets. Last thing I'll say on them is that looks like they're going to need to find ways to improve their bench a little bit because, guys were out, so it forced other guys to step up in their roles. And there were some games where the bench, I mean, it was horrible. I mean, the signings that they made in the offseason, bringing in, Clint Capella wasn't really helpful at the end of the day, especially in the playoffs. And then Dorian Finney-Smith, I know he was injured to start the year, but he gave them really nothing throughout the year. And this is a guy that's under contract for potentially the next 2 to 3 seasons. So if he's going to be on your books here at age 33 and he gave you nothing in the first year of the deal, like that's something that could really hinder this team. So I'm excited to see what ends up happening with this Rockets team. I mean, they're a team that we should head into next year thinking that they're championship contenders, but I think it's another situation where they're going to kind of have to prove it to us, especially in a Western Conference that we always say is only going to get better as these younger teams rise up.
I got one more question. How many years is Kevin Durant under contract with the Houston Rockets?
So he signed an extension for 2 years. So he's under contract, fully guaranteed this next season, and then he's got a player option in 2028.
See, that's with what you said, that's the issue I think of when you said they thought that this year wasn't the contending team. You don't have that many years with Kevin Durant left. You have this one. He's probably pissed that you didn't go and try to go all in because he could see more of the team. You can't see more of this team if you don't make it past the first round. Like, even if you didn't think it was the championship, you got to try to put more of a fight. That's where I have the problem. Like, yeah, they believed in Reed Shepherd and the youngsters, but, like, that's not a good message to tell the giant superstar you just signed to help take your team to the championship.
Totally agree. Totally agree. But I think, as we've said on the podcast before, at the same time, Durant needs to play better as well. He needs to play a lot better because this is now like as we go into next year, this is another year where Durant doesn't get out of the first round, although he was injured. But this is now like next year's 2027. It's going to be since he's left Golden State, he's stuck on the number 2. He's won 2 playoff series since he's left the Warriors, one with the Nets, one with the Suns, and who knows what's going to happen here with the Rockets.
Yeah, not a good look.
Before we preview tonight's Game 7, Joey, since you've obviously, you've been busy the last week, we haven't been able to hear from you a whole lot here on the podcast. What are your thoughts on some of these other series that have been going on here? Do you have any things that you want to say? Any apologies that you want to hand out to any players? Anything in particular?
Oh, I know what you're saying. That, first off, that Hawks performance was just abysmal. I know we've talked about some really bad offensive games and just bad games in general, but that quite literally tops the list if Orlando's just 0 for 23 streak didn't top the list. Like, that was just an awful game by the Hawks. But, hey, I'm not going to give an apology to Mikal Bridges because he finally played up to how he should have been playing before.
It's about darn time.
It's about dang time. Yeah, it really is. Like, OG Anunoby was fantastic as well. Like, he was phenomenal. At one point I saw they were up, like, obviously, like, 39 or something like that to, like, 15 or something like that. And at that point I saw Anunoby had 16 points and it was already outscoring Atlanta by himself. Like, that was crazy. But Mikal Bridges, you're really going to need to step up for whoever you play next round. Because obviously Philly and Boston are going to Game 7. But Philly looks like a completely different team with everybody healthy. Embiid is back. Paul George is back. Like, this is a completely different team than you saw in the regular season. Like, Embiid's is just coming back. But you're getting vintage performances out of Paul George. Tyrese Maxey is still a killer. Like, whoever – and then if you play Boston, like, Mikal Bridges, you're really going to need to be more consistent. But, hey, hopefully this is if you play like this next round, then I'll give you an apology cut. But one game ain't just going to cut it, my boy. But, yeah, also, Philly-Boston, can't wait for Game 7. That's going to be fantastic. I didn't really expect it, but I would love Philly to move on. I hate Boston. I would love Philly to move on. That would be just that would just be icing on the cake.
Yeah, before we go on to preview that game, Joey, what were your thoughts on the Timberwolves taking down the Nuggets? Overall in the series, but just the overall last few games here and in Game 6 with the Wolves missing their three best guards, taking out Denver in Game 6.
Like I know I mentioned him earlier, Aya DeSumo, the Timberwolves getting him at the trade deadline was so clutch because he helped them win those two games earlier in the series. But like I said, the last game that they won with him, to me, it kind of put the nail in the coffin. Even with all the injuries they were doing, I just don't think the Nuggets had that fight in them. Even with Aaron Gordon out, because remember, the Nuggets aren't the healthiest either right now. Aaron Gordon, regardless of how you say, last year was incredible. In the last couple of years, he has been incredibly clutch in playoff situations. He's the kind of guy you want when it comes down to clutch time if you can make it close. And he's the guy to give you the fight. But the Nuggets just didn't have it. Cam Johnson finally had a decent game. Little too late, unfortunately. Jamal Murray didn't have a good game. Jokic is still doing his thing, but the things aren't matching up. Like, that's just what it is. Cam Johnson finally has a good game, but Murray has a terrible game. Jokic is still doing his, but Aaron Gordon is out. Like, the puzzle just isn't connecting. The dots aren't connecting. It's just – it was inevitable, but it was really just an unfortunate performance from the Denver Nuggets. But good on the Timberwolves. We'll see you in the conference finals again. I know you got to get through the Spurs.
What?
3 years in a row.
All right, pump the brakes. Pump the brakes on that for a second. But no, I mean, Ben and I talked about on here just on Denver's outlook going forward on how they kind of like, as a first-round exit team, their future kind of looks a bit bleak here because they kind of have no choice but to just keep on running it back. But again, young Western Conference that keeps coming up with the Thunder, the Spurs, the Rockets. I mean, these Wolves are only getting better. The lottery teams like the Jazz and the Mavericks, like, and the Blazers that just had a first round. Like, this is a team that's only getting older here and is coming off of their worst series potentially of the Jokic and Murray era.
Yeah, this was really unfortunate. Almost like you probably shouldn't have fired Mike Maloney last year. Who knows? But, again, hindsight is 2020. But you're absolutely right. The offseason, don't really have much of an option. Hope healthy. Maybe a trade comes along the way to shake it up, but outside of that, you're kind of stuck. It's kind of a good stuck because you're like, hey, we're stuck in this kind of championship window where we have the talent. Unfortunately, things just keep not going our way and not lining up. Like, they do have the talent. Like, the roster was good. This team, like me and you predicted to go to the finals this year against Cleveland. Like, obviously that's not happening now. It's just very unfortunate, but I guess it's kind of good. But like you said, the Jazz are going to be playoff contenders next year. The Blazers put up a fantastic fight against the Spurs. I kind of expected – I know Ben expected the Spurs to sweep them. I expected in 5. Most of us did. They put up a magnificent fight. Like, this Blazers team is only going to get better. The Jazz are only – you're still in your championship window, but it is in just rapidly closing.
Yep. I think, obviously like Ben and I talked about, they got to find a way to improve defensively.
Yeah.
Because that was their biggest problem throughout the regular season. And it couldn't really, when their offense kind of struggled a bit against Minnesota, their defense couldn't really catch up to it for the majority of the series. And then the big thing I think to watch here, we talked about Peyton Watson's restricted free agency and how he kind of played so well out of his price, maybe his price line for Denver to keep him going forward. But something to note here is, I think around draft time and going into free agency, look to see if Denver looks to move on from Cam Johnson in an attempt to re-sign Peyton Watson, because that could very well be a possibility.
I would not be surprised by that. Peyton Watson was crucial to them. He
That's
was
another
very
injury, another
crucial.
injury for them.
Yeah, that was honestly one of the more crucial injuries, like an Aaron Gordon. Like that's kind of the level where it's like Aaron Gordon can really help you win this series. Peyton Watson really could help you this series because he turns on that defense. And with Cam Johnson only playing really well, like one game in the playoffs, that's not what you need. You could easily get someone a little more consistent and serviceable for cheaper, and like you said, re-sign Peyton Watson. I would not be surprised by that at all.
Yeah. But overall, we do have that game 7 here tonight, the first of 3 game 7s, all in the Eastern Conference. Philly, Boston, 7:30 on NBC and Peacock. Again, like you talked about before here, the game 7 that I don't know how many of us expected here. I mean, on our predictions here, Ben and Nick had this as a sweep. Joey had them in 5. I thought for sure that this was going to end on a Thursday night in game 6, but Philadelphia's put together 2 straight incredible defensive performances, and now they have put themselves in a position where they could eliminate the Boston Celtics in the first round of the playoffs. Joey, what are you looking to see here from either of these teams here in this game 7?
Well, first off, I'd like to say if the Sixers were healthy going into the playoffs, obviously they weren't, so I really didn't pick them. But going in, if they were healthy, out of all the teams that probably could have played, the Celtics, the Sixers were probably the number 1 team I would have chosen. Because if they were healthy, this is exactly what could have happened. And I love it because F Boston. I hate Boston. But let's hope they have a really bad shooting night if you're rooting for the Sixers, because that's kind of how it usually goes for Boston. It's happened in Boston before, maybe not in game 7, but in other games where they don't shoot the ball well and they lose it at home. Like, it is not out of the ordinary. But I don't expect them, if that happens in a game 7, I don't expect them to just keep shooting the ball. It's game 7. I expect them to actually change it and have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum just attack the paint. Like, that's what Boston's going to need if it's just not going down. Like, if Derek White continues to struggle and stuff like that, and they're guarding the crap out of Baylor Shireman and Peyton Pritchard, and those guys can't get going. Sam Hauser, too. If those guys aren't getting open shots, even though they just need a sliver of space to get open, if they're not getting open shots, it's going to be real tough for Boston. And Joe Mazzulla is going to have to come up with another game plan. But the Sixers, you got to keep doing what you're doing. You got a vintage performance out of Paul George. Maxi's still great. Embiid seems like he's starting to warm up a little more. You just got to keep riding with it. Like you said, played fantastic defense. You just got to do it again. Like I said, cover those other guys because Jaylen Brown and Tatum are going to get theirs. But when you have the center matchup with Embiid just being there, but if you cover the other guys, Shireman, Pritchard, Hauser, and Derek White, because obviously even if he's struggling, he's still a big threat because he's been there, done that. If you cover those guys, you're honestly in a really good spot.
Ben, what are you expecting to see from the Boston Celtics here after losing back-to-back games, and when it came down to it, not really competitive, fashions late in the fourth quarter of games 5 and 6?
Well, I think Boston, if threes aren't really falling, have to be willing to attack that basket. Tatum and Brown got to attack that basket. Win or go home. Game 7, you got to be aggressive and give it all you got. One game. Have great energy to just work to get it done, and the fans will come out loud and rowdy, feed off that energy, and just make it happen. Play smart. Just you gotta do what it takes to get it done and move to the next round at least. But Philly's gonna be tough. Boston's really gonna have to step it up especially against Embiid, because Embiid's been really hard on them matchup wise the last few games. So they're gonna have to really have a game plan for Joel Embiid too.
Yeah, Joey, something that I'm just really looking forward to in this game, something that I was talking about with Ben on last night's recap, was that this is a matchup. I think it's the most historic playoff matchup in the history of the league. Like they've met each other the most times in playoff history, and most of the times it's the Celtics that are on the high side, knocking off the Sixers, and most of the time it's the Sixers that have the pressure, and when they don't take care of business, it's like, man, Joel Embiid not able to get past the second round. He chokes down the stretch, like that. But in this situation, this is a rare occurrence where, to me, Boston has all of the pressure heading into this game.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. The Celtics are at home. You don't do this like I said, they've done it before, like in game twos and game threes in past, where they just can't shoot and they lose at home. Like that's happened in the playoffs before, but to do it game 7 to lose to your rival, that's extreme pressure just there. Not to mention, Tatum came back so quickly from injury that you're like, hey, you sent a message while like I know he probably wanted to do it himself, but as an organization, when you say he is coming back 10 months after an Achilles injury, that means you are sending a message that we are championship contenders. We are there. The Sixers, they're just happy they're semi-healthy going into the playoffs. They're happy they took this team that's a contender. Because regardless of what you say, like, hey, this team isn't really playing like they should have been a 7 seed. It's like, yeah, no duh. There should have been a higher seed, but they've been battling with crap all year. Like, that's what's happened. But this team doesn't play like it, but they don't have that kind of pressure because they are a 7 seed. All the pressure is, I'm with you, all the pressure is on Boston because sent that message, you're the higher seed, you're at home, and the Knicks are waiting for you. The Knicks, you want to play the Knicks. You want to play the Knicks after last year. That's what you want to do. All the pressure is on Boston.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how the Celtics handle that at home because even in the Joe Mazzulla era of him being their head coach, it's not like they've been the best home team in the playoffs. They've definitely been a better road team than a home team. But even with that, they've gotten big home victories as well, over the last few years in their playoff times, including some game 7s. I think something to note here with Jason Tatum is that he had that sort of lingering injury, been in the third quarter of game 6 and then exited for the rest of the game. Of course, it ended up being a blowout, so he didn't have to come back in. But any concerns with the Jason Tatum injury? I mean, it sounds like he'll be good to go for game 7, but if it is, a re-aggravation potential, looked like it was a leg injury. Any concerns about Tatum heading into game 7?
I'm not really too concerned. Is minor, but I mean, still, look over carefully and just, should be good to play, but just hope it's not anything worse and Jason Tatum will want to be out there badly for game 7. I know it with him.
Agreed. You got to do your due diligence to make sure he's healthy enough so he doesn't re-aggravate it and misses even more time next year in case you do force him to do it. Because, like you said, he's going to want to be out there. But it's also an issue because if he is actually not right, but he is forcing himself to go out there, they need him to be efficient. They need him to be Jason Tatum. So if he is not himself and is still feeling sore and his leg isn't completely right, regardless if he hurts it more or not, it might not be enough for them to even win the game.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into our predictions. Who do we think's going to take this home? Philly, Boston, game 7. Who do you guys got?
Ben, what do you think?
I'll go. Yeah, not an easy one to predict the 76ers have played really well recently, given them a tough time matchup wise. Celtics are at home, but I'm skeptical of them. Maybe they show up at home though, game 7, but I'm gonna give it the 76ers tonight. My mind could change later, but I'm believing in Philly right now. They're feeling really good. They're playing confident, and Bede's looking more back to the form he used to be. He's looking great, and Maxi's, I trust him as the leading ball handler to play smart, hopefully. And yeah, the 76ers are fun right now. I believe they'll somehow do it. They've already taken 2 games there. I think they'll feel confident going into it.
And I like that pick. Because I want the Sixers to win so badly. I think they have all the momentum. Like you said, they've won there twice already this series, so they're confident there. Um, they don't have all the they really have probably pressure on themselves, but really not a lot of outside pressure like years past. So just feels different. However, I am a betting man, and my bets always lose. So I'm gonna take the Celtics in hopes that the Sixers win, and I am wrong. But I think I'm gonna pick the Celtics. They're at home. They clearly are the better team, at least consistently wise, over the years. So I'll put it on them. I think they got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to go with Boston in this situation just because of the overall history of it. Like, I would be very shocked if Boston didn't put together a great game in this one to come away with the victory. And I think that's what they're going to end up doing. But man, if those Sixers could pull it off, I would not complain at all. That would certainly be something if the Eastern Conference favorite was out in round 1.
And just think about that next matchup: Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson, Cat versus Embiid, Paul George, OG Anunoby, VJ Edgecombe, Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, that's the matchup I want to see in the second round. So hopefully that is what happens. But Boston, New York would be great too, because that's another historic matchup as well. But that is it here. Again, Game 7, Boston and Philadelphia. Winner go home, 7:30 on NBC and Peacock from the TD Garden to see who can advance to the second round to play against the New York Knicks, who just defeated the Hawks by 50-60. Still can't believe that happened. But that is all for us here. You guys have anything else before we get out of here?
2 best words in sports: Game 7. Y'all better watch, because I know I will.
Yeah.
Yep.
Freedom. Woohoo! Can't complain.
That's right.
Only 1 sweep. I know we said this postseason has already been crazy, but 1 sweep, 3 game 7s. This is fantastic.
And 6 game 6s.
It's incredible.
It really has. So make sure you're back here tomorrow here to hear our thoughts on the Game 7. And again, we'll be previewing the 2 Western Conference semifinal series as well. So stay tuned for that. But for now, enjoy Game 7 tonight, man. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA playoff content. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.
Peace.